Hi, everyone. Welcome to the BizDev Podcast, the podcast about developing your business. My name is David Baxter. I'm your host, and I am joined by My Little Pony superfan, Gary Voigt. How's it going, man?
These are getting worse every week, man. I am not.
How was the convention? Did your
They have conventions?
did your costume fit?
Okay,
That's
yeah,
a
no,
good one.
I didn't.
Don't even.
Do they
yeah.
have conventions for real? Do you know that?
I have absolutely no idea, but I do
You're
know
sure?
they called
You
bronies.
sounded pretty confident.
My daughter was super into My Little Pony for a long time. Her favorite was Dash. And so she told me later as she got older that apparently boys who like it are called bronies. And I thought that you looked like one. So there you have it.
I appreciate that. No, my
Thank you.
daughters, I guess, watched My Little Pony for like a stint, just a brief little while, but no, never got into it. Not as much as I was into the Barbie movies. Oh wait,
Fair
we'll
enough.
cut that
They're
out.
making
We'll
a new
cut
one
that out.
just for you. So we are actually going to talk to Carleen Haylett. She is the CEO and founder of EnrichedHQ, the launch portfolio company. She is chief member and entrepreneur of said company. So I'm very excited to talk to her. We're going to ask her a lot more questions. But first, I want to ask, I'm kind of starting a series here where I want to ask people about their time management skills. Time management is, especially as a founder and the leader of a company, is weird because I believe very strongly that being the founder, the CEO, whatever you want to call it, your job is the only job on the planet that your job is to give away your job. And so that makes time management very different for the leaders of the companies than it is the normal everyday worker. And so I'm curious about your view on time management and how you keep yourself busy. What do you find yourself doing on a day-to-day basis? So Carleen, hello. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. Big fan here, so happy to be part of it.
You hear that? We have a fan. I'll take it. I'll take it all day. So when it comes to time management, so just for sake of our audience, time management is how you spend your work time day to day. Is that something that you find yourself, you're just buried all the time and that's a struggle for you to try to keep your priorities? How do you manage your time?
Yeah, that's, you hit the nail on the head. As a founder, you're responsible for absolutely everything, and it's all coming at you at once. And thankfully, I guess, maybe from my mother, I'm a complete control freak. So
Nice.
ever since I was little, the notion of having a plan and sticking to it has been drilled into me. So um, that certainly doesn't alleviate the stress that comes with running a startup. But for me, I'm religious about setting annual goals, and then taking those and breaking those down into quarterly and even monthly goals.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, huge control freak. I am a paper and pen person, and I sit down every single morning. I get up, super, super early to do this with a daily calendar, and I map out every single hour and highlight the items that are absolutely imperative to accomplish that day and that week, and set the goals for that week. And, I'm not nearly as successful at it as I would love to be, but there it is. And I feel like for me, and we'll talk about this a little bit, I'm also a single mother of a child who's homeschooled. So I'm running a business, I'm homeschooling my son, and I'm trying to be kind to myself. And from Sunday night to Friday night, all I want to do is execute. Right? I don't want to, sit and sort of figure out where I'm going or what I'm doing. So I try to map it out the week out at the beginning, on Sundays, and then roll on into the week.
So that's an interesting question then. So one of the things that my business group talks about a lot is what's called margin, which is allowing yourself to have the space to allow the serendipitous to occur.
Yeah.
So you seem like, based on what you're saying, that you are not allowing yourself to do any of that. So now let me back up for a second. How large is your company? Is it just you, or is it lots of people? Where are you at?
It's I'm a solopreneur. I can
Okay.
never say that word, but have 7 or 8 contract folks that I work
Mm-hmm.
with that do various pieces
Okay.
of things.
And is that how you want to keep it, or are you looking to eventually bring them into the fold? And okay,
Yeah, certainly grow the team more of a full-time folks, and we're sort of at that impasse right now.
sure, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun place to be. Let me. I've been there. Um, so, are you at that stage where you're still the technician, meaning you're the one getting it done, or are you already delegating that out?
I'm already delegating that. My area of focus really is on the business side of the house. And even though my career started as a technical developer, I very, very quickly get over my skis, right?
Mhm.
Um, I was able to build the MVP myself, but we now, we're a revenue generating company. We have clients that are very, very large, technical roadmaps of things that I just simply can't accomplish on my own. Um,
Okay.
so,
So I'll dive into those because that opens up a whole box of questions for me. But I'm going to put those on the pause just to stay focused here for a minute. So your day to day is managing your people, your because you're not getting stuff done, meaning deliverables for your clients. So your job is to manage and delegate and make sure everybody is on track.
well, it's a little bit of both. And there's also, I build in, to your point, you know, time that's open for, I guess you'd put it under the bucket of thinking, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
big problems that need, serious quiet time and mind thought to get them done. But the way that it's structured today is the places where my skills fall short, I have people that I've delegated to, but there are areas of execution that fall within my wheelhouse,
Mm-hmm.
particularly around enterprise sales and process development, all the stuff on the financial side. And so I'm sort of in this mix of I've got all these requirements that I need to deliver on, but at the same time, I have this ecosystem of um, externals that I also manage throughout the week. So it's a mix of both.
One of the things that I have found, and that the reason this topic is so fascinating to me is as I have given away my own job, I have found I go in phases that I will have times where I am looking around going, I have nothing to do. I just gave away everything I was supposed to be doing. It's everything I was been doing, right, for the last X months,
Yeah.
years, whatever. Like the hard one was like you were mentioning, there are things that fall into your wheelhouse that you haven't given away yet. What I have recently done is given away the things that are my wheelhouse. And that is weird. And I mean, it's been a very slow process. You give away some and some and some. And now largely development is not my jurisdiction anymore. When I was a developer for 20 years. So I do a little bit. I always try to stay a little current, but I don't have deliverables anymore. And that is really weird. And that was the hardest one so far to let go of. Like letting go of design and giving it to Gary, it helps that he's more talented than me. That's for sure. And my developers are more talented than me. But that was easier to let go of because that wasn't the core of me. Right.
Yeah.
And now I've given away the core, what I've called myself a developer forever. I still do, but I really don't do it very often.
Was that painful for you? Like, did you hang on to it longer than in hindsight you should have or could have or
I'm not sure if I held on to it too long, only because if I was doing it, it's because everyone else was busy. I just find time management so interesting because that's like you were saying is when I got rid of my deliverables, it allowed me to have the time to do that deep thinking. And then that's where a lot of those questions come from. I'll start reading. I bought the top 10 Harvard Business Review articles on leadership.
Oh yeah.
And boy, howdy, poor Gary, when that happened, because that's just like opening your mind, and it just, well, we need to be doing this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And it was exciting and overwhelming at the same time. And then I'll get busy again, and that time goes away, and then it comes back, and right. It's just very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you explaining your thought process and stuff. I love the idea. Don't get me started on pens and paper, but I love the idea of your meticulous way of doing it, which is complete opposite of me, by the way. But I love that perspective. But since we're talking about you, I want to hear. Give me your pitch.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah. So Enriched HQ is a centralized hub of life skills building activities for kids that are grades 4 and up. So the easiest way to think about us is a live version of Masterclass, but for juniors.
Okay.
So we're a platform that brings together best in class providers of programs for kids, school age kids that aren't being addressed in traditional education. So think about things like public speaking or entrepreneurship or building strong financial foundations around investments and economy and cybersecurity, as well as extensions of STEM and art and music. And so we have a centralized hub that brings these activity providers together, and we make it easy for parents, for working families to go and find and build enrichment programs for kids that are school age, grades 4 and up. And because not only as a single parent, but as a parent in general. Are you guys parents, by the way?
We
Yeah,
are.
okay. So
Yes.
you go out into the internet, your child wants to be engaged in something, and it becomes this nightmare of trying to find, really great activities at the price, at the time, and deal with all these different vendors. For families, we bring those together in a single place, and we handle all the logistics underneath that. And we work with large corporations. So our model is B2B focused. And so we work with folks like American Express and Adobe and Genpact and Alliant Insurance, where they bring access to this platform to their employees as part of diversity and inclusion programs that support women and working families, or as extensions of their employee benefits, because they're trying to retain employees. Their employees are stressed out and they're leaving, which is very costly to them. There's the whole future of work. Are we remote? Are we not remote? Are kids in school? Are they homeschooling? And families getting to the point. I mean, my personal experience, there was all this world of things that traditional education just wasn't exposing my son to, and finding them and bringing them and building a program for my son was highly labor intensive. And so, having been in enterprise technology for 25 years, as starting as a technologist and going through all sort of the various pieces of a large organization, I knew that this could be a solution solved by technology. And so that's the company that we are building.
So let me break that down to make sure I understand. So practically speaking, you go and find experts in a field, and you set up like Zoom calls, Zoom classes for
Yeah.
experts who talk to students.
Yeah, so what we do is just that. So we're an exclusive ecosystem of, we call them activity partners. So families will tell us the genre that they want their kids involved in. Say it's public speaking. And we'll go out and we'll find two or three providers who are offering virtual um, courses and curriculum around a particular topic. We'll invite them to join our ecosystem, and we make those programs available to families, and we handle the booking and transactional financial steps, and then the vendor then works with the family and to deliver the courses through Zoom or whatever platform they happen to use.
Okay. So how does let's see, where does yours end and homeschooling begin? I mean, I get where you're coming from
Yeah.
and the need for this, and where you felt a personal need and built a company out of it. That's very cool. Is this for enrichment or is this for credit or both?
It's for enrichment. It's not for
Okay.
credit. So we're I guess you could say we pick up where traditional education, whatever that is, ends, right? Whether it's homeschool, my son is in a virtual school where he's with kids all over the world. And then there are kids that attend school, whether it's public, private, whatever it may be. And so these are generally programs outside of the curriculums that are delivered for traditional things like English,
Mm-hmm.
math, you know,
Gotcha.
STEM in some regards, those types of things.
One thing you mentioned that you work with or you partner with Adobe. Now, are some of these courses coming from Adobe? You mentioned part of the arts, so are they learning some of the applications and how to use like creativity
Yeah.
as a tool to move forward to that? I do know that Adobe does offer, I guess you can say, certificates or something like that at the
Yep.
end of all these programs. Is that something that you also offer the kids that are enrolling to this?
We make a conscious effort to separate ourselves from the programs that the vendors, our activity partners, are providing. So some of the partners do have their own certificate programs. We as a company don't do that because we're not
You're just
necessarily
making the
developed.
connection then, like kind of
Yeah,
showing them like,
exactly.
hey, here's the option,
Yeah.
here's how you get with them. Okay. Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
as far as Adobe goes, yes, I'm very familiar with their education programs, and it's on my list. So if they're listening, they should get in touch. But we do have a partner, an artist who does sketch courses, and he is also part of that Adobe community, the
Okay.
education community. So um, by extension, I guess you could say yes.
So let's back up for a second. How old is the company?
So we were incorporated in February 2020, two
Okay.
weeks before lockdown started.
Perfect. Nailed it.
Perfect.
That is
Right.
timing. That is some timing right there.
Yeah, and a lot of folks have sort of grumbled and said, "Oh, geez, what a horrible time." But for what we were providing at that particular time, it was really a godsend, actually. And I think it played really well into our ability to grow so quickly. It's because, there was this forced adoption of virtual learning,
Mm-hmm.
but secondarily to that was this awakening around, hey, guess what? Virtual does work really, really great for a lot of things, right? We're not going to ever replace, for example, sports practice or maybe some music lessons or hands-on robotics and things like that. But you mean as a parent, I don't have to leave the office early and scurry over and pick up my son and take him to Spanish class? I can do it at home, and it offers all these ancillary benefits that remove stress from the families and from the kids. So the adoption of that has been really great.
Where are you in terms of the life cycle of startups? Like, you have bootstrapping, you're doing it all yourself, you're figuring things out, you find your first few clients, you bring in some revenue. Are you to the point where you are self-sufficient, or you're running off of a runway, or any of the sort? Like, where are you at in that journey?
God, depends on what day of the week it is. What's today? Monday,
I feel
right?
you.
So we are, I guess you could say we're running off a runway, but
Okay.
I personally, back to control freak, it all sort of points back to the same place, am very fiscally conservative. So we're not in any, knock on wood, close to any sort of fire sale type situation.
I love your story because I know it's a common story that a lot of startups want to do, but their founders are scared to do it.
Yeah,
They are to the point where they can't, make that deep jump. And you're a successful version of that jump. And I love
yeah,
that. It's most of the people we've talked to are running companies that have been around a long time. And one of the things I've said this before, but in my business group, there is mostly family businesses, and they've been around 50 plus years. And so the concept that the company will not be around is completely foreign to them. And I
yeah,
can tell just by the way you're talking, you are in the same boat as I have been for a long time. Is, what does next year look like? Dude, I got a month, maybe 3
yeah,
in front of me before, if I don't figure this out, the company goes away. Right.
yeah,
And it's hard for someone to explain and understand that when you've got a company that's 55 years old, and it never is going to go away. It would take a decade to unwind it, even if it did, right?
yeah,
And so I like to hear stories like yours where you're right there. You scrabbled through, you've got those first few clients, and you're now on. I don't know if you're on the other side, but you're going there. Like, how far in advance are you right now when you can say, okay, I got revenue? Because you have a subscription model, right?
yeah. Well, the corporations engage with us on an annual contract.
Okay.
And then we've just recently introduced an end user subscription. We haven't sold any of those. So an individual could, for X dollars per month, have unlimited access to all the
Okay.
programs that are on the platform, sort of thing. But to your point, this is why I love what you guys are doing, and the way that you talk to founders is we spend a lot of time talking about success stories, in the founder startup world, and
Sure.
it's great to hear those stories about people, not even just the unicorns, but and I don't feel like we as a community spend enough time talking about how ridiculously hard it is for a really, really long time, and
Yep.
scary. Very, very scary. I mean, when you say, in 6 months, I'm not going to be able to feed my kid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's so, this is the hardest thing I have ever done aside from giving birth, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, let me flip that though. Is it worth it?
Oh my God, yes. I get up
See, that's the magic right there.
every, I get up every day and I say to myself, my God, how lucky am I that I get to do this every single day? Today could potentially be a disaster, or the next 10 minutes could be a disaster followed by total elation. But how flippin' cool is it to be able to do this?
It takes a special person, because that person has to be okay with the fact that today could be horrible and awesome at the same time, and that can't throw you off your game.
Yeah.
They have to be okay with this stress because, again, like when I started, my wife was like, "Hey, I support you 1,000%, but your salary can't change."
Yeah.
From day one, right? And because I had a little one, right? I had two little ones actually at the time. And she was like, whatever you need, but we're not changing this. Like we had already cut our salary as low as we could. And so day one, I had to make a developer salary, and that's not stressful at all. And so to have that stress, like, oh, I have work for the next 3 weeks. Oh, and then it came 4 weeks. And now, even now, I mean, we're 10 years old this year. I would say we are probably 6 months at any point in time. And that to me is a relief, right? It's not, I'm not scrambling every day to pay Gary tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Or
We're
taking
past
on
that.
another credit card, or,
I
I
know a
did.
lot of people like that. Thankfully, we never did any debt, but did you go that route initially where you
No,
did that?
never. I can't. I'm petrified of debt. So,
Sure.
but I did cash out my son's college savings account.
Back when you started, how did you get the word out to potential clients and customers? And how did you grow your client
Yeah.
base? Like, what kind of, did you do any
Yeah.
kind of active marketing, or was it a lot of networking and just like referrals?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, I'd been in enterprise sales for a really long time. And I have happened to be lucky enough to have a network of really high profile executives. And I joke and I say, we've all seen the movie Goodfellas, where Brando says, I'm going to do this for you, but one day I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask you for a favor. And so all of these executives whose, massive technology problems I'd gone to, bat for them and solved for them, I just started picking up the phone and saying, remember when I told you that someday I'm coming back, you know? Um, and so I feel very blessed. When I was selling enterprise software, it was a slog. Oh, here I am slinging software and this and that. But it's become my greatest asset, and colleagues that work with me and some of the amazing people who are on our advisory board also come from that world.
Okay.
So from a corporate perspective, we're really blessed in that A, we have these contacts at the C levels, and B, we all really intimately know what it means to sell in that environment, which most technical founders don't tend to know what that
Yeah,
means.
no, that's a big advantage. So that's good. And plus, you had the roots of that, the foundation of having those connections and network and relationships already built from sales. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Definitely a help.
If you think about our model, we really have two customers, if you will. We have the corporations, but then the end users are really our customers. One's a client, one's a customer. And so, it's great for me to go out and sign, a major B2B customer. But if their employees are not engaging and buying activities on the platform, well, the model just doesn't work, right? The partners say, to heck with this. And, the employees get no value. And so then when it comes time to renew that B2B contract, they want to see the numbers, right?
So how do you market to that? Like, how do you get
So
your
we do two flavors of that. One is as part of the corporate contract, we do joint marketing internally through whether it be their HR organization or their
yeah, okay.
DEI to groups like Women at Adobe or, Families at Amex, where we offer exclusive programs or discounts or just, general notifications so that we're in front of those employees. So that's how we do it with our corporate clients. But we also run a series of email marketing out to the general public. We do some paid advertisements on Facebook that we're sort of noodling with now. Content development. We do some thought leadership postings. I do podcasts like this, those types of things.
Very good. So I want to mention the Launch Accelerator. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
It was really awesome. And again, I just think how blessed I am to be doing this every day. It's an incredible program, and I don't know that I would call it so much an accelerator. Jason might disagree. But when I think about accelerator, I think about really, really young companies who are at the idea stage or just at the beginning of MVP stage. And they benefit greatly from being with a group of other companies where they're ideating, they're tapping into resources to figure out how to build a financial model or, what the go to market strategy is. The launch program really is for companies who are past a certain point of revenue generation. They have a working product. They're sort of on their way to product market fit. They're still, pre-seedish companies. And the way that program works is while you get access to the entire ecosystem of all of their experts around all the parts of running a business, really what it is 15 to 17 weeks of pitches to about 15 to 20 investors, whether they be individuals or VCs, every single week for 15 weeks. And they give you a very prescribed 3-minute structure in which you have to tell your story. And then you get 2 minutes to answer questions. And that's it. And you do it week over week over week over week. And I found it extremely valuable in really getting me to the place where I could articulate what it is that we do it and what our value proposition is in the shortest amount of time possible.
Sounds kind of like a boot camp to get you
Boot camp,
get you
yeah,
where you need to be.
Pitch ready.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it gets you direct access to, what was it? I'm through the course of the thing, I must have pitched, over 200 captive VCs. Another part of it is there's 2 sessions that I myself blindly would probably never have gotten, and that's to one of the 2 of the partners at Sequoia Capital, which was just really, really incredible, and then 3 of the general partners at Craft Ventures. And neither of those invest in my space, which is ed tech and, early stage like pre-seed. And so I would have not gotten those audiences had I not been chosen to be part of the program. So that was a huge gift.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So we always like to ask all of our guests, what are the 3 things you would recommend to a startup to you 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Or another startup right now that is trying to make that plunge or start that business? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I go back to what I said earlier, and to boil it down, I'd say don't whatever you can do, don't buy into the hype. It's really easy to get sucked into the Twitter, void of, I grew my business from 0 to $750 million in 2.5 weeks stories, right? Do you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
Yeah, my
easy.
course is for sale. Yeah.
Yeah, that
10 steps.
ecosystem. And this goes back to what I said before is I love podcasts like yours that acknowledge and are actually open and honest about how hard and how long it really, really takes. It's a soul sucking experience to start a company. Do
We
you
call it the
know?
slog for a reason. That's right.
Yeah, right. And so to new founders, I would say, you know, don't buy into the hype and just remember that and second I'd say like 1A is find your people, your peeps, right? And find the peeps that are at the same place you are and will sit and have a cocktail over Zoom with you and everybody's crying in their beers, right? And talk about it and help each other and because otherwise it's extremely extremely lonely. The second one that I would say is if you are at all uncomfortable or have no exposure to sales, right? Whether
Mm-hmm.
it be to B2B or B2C, find a way to get it, right?
Mm.
Especially if you're selling to B2B, because if you're a technologist, I believe I have a platform to say this, having been in technology for 25 years. Technical folks do technical things, right? They don't generally sell. And B2B sales is so complex, large, organizations. So many people have their fingers in the pie, and just the sheer notion that there's a very distinct line between I've sold a deal and now I've got to close a deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is legal, procurement, security review, that could take. I just had a deal closed. It was 9 months to get through that process, and it was a
Mm.
$35,000 deal, right? So, you know, understand what it means to actually sell in that world is imperative. Um, and then, sort of, really, it's funny you started with the time management. The last thing I would say is take the time and have a plan, right? People that say you can't manage what you don't measure, right? You got to know what your North Star is. And even if it's some, wild ass, pie in the sky situation, I want to be, profitable in 6 months. Well, okay, fine. That probably isn't going to happen. But, right, like that's your North Star and work backwards from there. And every single day, every little thing, that 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 you do, every seed that you plant, and this is another thing I do, no matter how little an accomplishment is in the day, I write it down. I did this. I talk to Gary and David, right? So
Always a
I can
highlight.
I can see that I'm laying little seeds all along, and ultimately you'll see them come back. But that only happens if you have a plan.
Well, you would not be surprised, but at the same time might be surprised at how many people bring up the sales, especially coming from a technical side of building a startup because they have an idea and they want to execute a solution for a problem. But then when it comes to after that passion of finding the solution and building the thing happens, then how do they get people to care? Like we've mentioned that before. David talks a lot about that. And coming from a technical background and then forcing yourself into a sales kind of personality, it could
Yeah.
that could be a paradigm shift that a lot of people just aren't ready
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, and some folks just are not comfortable doing that, and
Correct.
that's completely fine. But if you're honest with yourself about it, then you will find ways to find people who will help you there,
Yeah.
whether you have the money to buy it or you have a friend who will do it part time or whatever you work. right now I'm working with another startup that I needed some technical help on something. He was one of the companies in launch, and he had some free time and wanted to make a couple extra bucks, you know. And so, he's never going to come be my CIO, but I needed to accomplish something quickly, and he was techie, I was not, and there you go.
How can someone look up and find out all the programs that you guys offer? You said the name of the
Yeah.
company is Enriched HQ. So why don't you give us some? Do you have a website address or contact on LinkedIn?
Yeah, our marketing website is enrichedhq.com, and the marketplace with all the activities is enrichedhqmarket.com. But you can send me an email at Carleen@enrichedhq.com, or I'm on Twitter. My handle is the same, or LinkedIn, or and I love meeting, parents and people that are involved in this, and can they help me? Can I help them? Sort of thing, because as you guys know, some days can be a flat out nightmare,
Yeah.
and it's good to have people.
Yep, it's always good to have someone exciting who's calling you and says, "Hey, I'd like to learn more." Right, that'll make your day
Yeah,
every time.
and we can all read all the business books that are out there, but usually somebody who's done it can boil it down to a 2.5 minute spiel for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, we will definitely have all the links and such on the show notes wherever
Awesome.
we're posting. But Gary, if someone wanted to touch base with us, how would they do that?
They can reach out to us. Any comments or questions, they could send us an email, hello@thebigpixel.net, or they can leave any kind of comment they want underneath this video on YouTube, or hit us up on any of our social media channels. And if you like David's dances on TikTok, let him know.
Don't even. Nope.
I'm
Nope.
gonna go find you today on TikTok. I didn't
Oh
know you were on
man.
TikTok.
You
I
keep
hope
trying
I'm
to go
not.
viral, but his breakdancing skills have not gotten better.
Oh, that is so wrong. He only says that because he knows I have a deep disdain for TikTok.
Oh, okay.
So, all right. Well, on that note, on that scary, scary visual that you just all had, we are going to sign off. Well, thank you so much, Carleen, for joining us. It was great
Yeah,
learning about you and your company.
thank
And
you. I
best of
enjoyed it
luck with
very much.
Enrich HQ.
Yeah, thanks so much.
It was a pleasure meeting you,
Sure.
Carleen.
Yeah, you as well. Both of you. Bye.